Beijing, the political and economic center of China, is now a gloomy picture. The once bustling streets are now deserted, as if tears were falling with the people leaving. The high-speed trains to Beijing, once crowded, are now just empty carriages. On the night of December 19th, Mr. Yang, a passenger on a high-speed sleeper train from Shanghai to Beijing, bought a ticket and found himself the only passenger on the train. The video he posted quickly went viral on social media, sparking heated discussions. Some people were surprised. The Beijing-Shanghai line is one of the busiest railway lines, yet now, right before the Lunar New Year, it is so deserted. The economy must be in trouble. Others were skeptical. Impossible. No matter how bad the economy is, it can't be this bad. Someone sarcastically said, "The whole train car is for only one person? How luxurious." The journey from Shanghai to Beijing took about 4 hours. During the journey, Mr. Yang kept updating, "I am still alone in the train car, it feels creepy." When he arrived in Beijing, he was even more shocked to find that it was already noon and no one had gone out to eat. "I just arrived at Yang'anli Station on the number 1 subway, where there were almost no passengers. It was strange." At night, he shared about the Shanghai area, once the busiest center of the city. At 8 or 9 p.m., the number of pedestrians here could be counted on the fingers. A few festive decorations were hung, but the holiday atmosphere seemed to be gone. Tomorrow, it might be even lonelier. The shopping malls were not spared from the recession either. Although the large LED screens were still lit, the atmosphere was quiet. Famous milk tea shops were also closed for the winter break. The dining area on the lower floors of the shopping mall was only half open. The other half had signs saying it was under renovation. According to Mr. Duong, this was probably a way to hide the fact that the booths could not be rented out. Beijing, once a symbol of prosperity and wealth, is gradually losing its luster. Restaurants are empty, shopping malls are quiet, and once bustling train stations are empty. The city, once the pride of China, has hit rock bottom as the economy falters. At Beijing's train station, the waiting room is deserted. Squares, once packed with people, are now empty. These images are not just a small change, but a stark symbol of the severe economic downturn in mainland China. At the moment of the new year 2025, in the large square on the Bund in Shanghai, hundreds of thousands of people turned their eyes to the big screen. They counted down the seconds. 10, 9, 8. The sounds echoed throughout the square, mixed with excitement, hope, and a little nervousness. 4, 3, 2, 1. The moment has come. The clock struck 12 o'clock, but nothing happened. The big screen did not light up. There were no fireworks, no music, no greetings. The sky was still pitch black. The crowd began to stir. The hesitant cheers gradually died down, giving way to a sense of loss that filled the air. "Is this all?" someone in the crowd whispered. The eyes of thousands of people changed from excitement to surprise, then disappointment. In Beijing, the same scene took place. From Tiananmen to other large squares, people waited for a complete New Year's celebration, but what they received was only silence, the gloomy atmosphere signaling a difficult new year for the Chinese people. The crowd began to stir, the expectant eyes turned to surprise, and then disappointment. An unfamiliar feeling filled the air, disappointment mixed with indignant indignation that was hard to name. The reason was a series of bans from the government. No countdowns, no fireworks, no large gatherings for safety, for the environment. They said so, but for the people, that was not a reason enough to explain the theft of their joy. Is this the end of a dreary New Year's Eve? Does this silence really reflect resignation? In Shanghai in 2023, more than 1 million people flocked to the Bund to participate in the countdown, creating one of the most memorable moments of the year. But this year, according to unofficial reports, that number is down by more than 90%. In Beijing, the grand light show that attracts hundreds of thousands of people has completely disappeared. The government's directives do not stop at banning public events. Even setting off fireworks at home, a tradition associated with the new year, is banned. The government cited environmental protection and social security as reasons. But for the people, these bans are no different from taking away the spirit of the holiday. More than 10 major cities in China, including Shenzhen and Chengdu, shared a sad, quiet, and disappointed atmosphere. A Beijing resident shared, I used to look forward to New Year's Day as a new beginning, but this year everything is just like a boring, ordinary day. From residential areas in Chongqing, alleys in Wuhan, to suburbs in Guangdong, fireworks were lit up like a flame of protest. A man in Nanjing said, "Without fireworks, there is no meaning to the new year. Even if I am arrested, I will still light them." This action was not without consequences. According to statistics, on the night of the 30th alone, urban management forces in Shenzhen arrested more than 300 people for illegally setting off fireworks. Many people were taken to the police station, and many fireworks vehicles were confiscated. But what is remarkable is that even when facing the risk of being arrested, the fireworks continued to ring out. Under the light of spontaneous fireworks, the image of the Chinese people became clear. A New Year's Eve that seemed to be covered in resigned silence suddenly changed. The fireworks, even spontaneous ones, still rang out as a way to face the bans that weighed heavily on this holiday. In Shanghai, one of the most bustling cities in China, shopping malls have also become deserted. A netizen commented that in previous years, going to the mall meant coming early to get a seat. This year, there was no need to queue, no need to worry. Simply, there were not enough people to create the bustle. A similar scene occurred in Liaoning, where the normally crowded shopping streets were now empty. A resident humorously mocked, "Is my big city sick, looking at Christmas Eve and seeing only darkness? No one." In Wuhan, the Optical Valley pedestrian street, which was usually crowded every weekend, now had only a few people left. A driver shared, "All my friends are having a hard time. They don't even want to go out anymore. The drivers went home early tonight because the supermarkets, restaurants, and hotels are all empty." A resident of Suihua, Heilongjiang, shared about his city, "This year, there are not as many people gathering as before. Mr. Lee's Beef Noodles, the most prosperous restaurant in the area, is now deserted." I initially did not intend to record this scene, fearing that sharing too much would reveal too many painful realities. But witnessing it with my own eyes, I cannot deny that the economy is indeed in a serious recession, far beyond anything I had ever imagined.
Have you noticed that there are fewer and fewer people in Beijing this year? The post-Chinese New Year period is typically when people return home. But this year, many houses cannot be rented out, and the streets are relatively quiet. Looking at the more popular jobs, such as designated drivers or food delivery workers, the salaries are pitiful. If you earn 4,000 yuan a month, there may not be much left after deducting the rent. Do you think there are still opportunities left in Beijing? Some netizens pointed out that fewer people are going out of the Longguan subway station than before. Are they all going home for the Chinese New Year? But there is still a month until the Chinese New Year, so it's too early to go home, right? Let me show you the subway station in Beijing. It is 7:40 in the evening. Look, there are no people, just a few people, almost no one. Even Universal Studios on Christmas Eve is sparsely populated. At 1:57 in the afternoon, there are very few people at the gate of Universal Studios. People are entering one after another. There are so few people on Hollywood Boulevard. At 2 p.m., the queue for Transformers is now 5 minutes. It only takes 5 minutes. 5 minutes. God, so cool. Netizens said they didn't expect Universal Studios to have so few people on Christmas Eve. Where did everyone go? Why has Beijing experienced population loss for 6 consecutive years? There are several reasons. The first is that it's difficult to find a job. A large number of positions are concentrated in sales. Overcoming these fields is stressful, and there is limited room for promotion, making competition increasingly fierce. The second reason is low income. All industries are generally cutting salaries and laying off employees. Many people's incomes have dropped to 3,000 to 5,000 yuan. They cannot cope with the pressure of high housing prices and living costs in Beijing. The pressure of life is indeed mounting. The third reason is the difficulty of starting a business. Compared with some southern cities, Beijing's business environment is slightly less favorable in certain aspects. Many entrepreneurs face higher costs and more intense competition. Netizen Mimi said, "It is really difficult to find a job in Beijing before the new year, and the salaries are very low. Additionally, the cost of finding a job is particularly high. The round-trip fare is more than 20 yuan a day, plus 20 yuan for lunch. After a month, Not only did I fail to find a job, but I also spent around 1,500 yuan on the cost of job hunting. Some young people said they went to 4 interviews today, but no one showed up. If not because the HR deducted 7 or 8 times the salary, then it was because they didn't pay the 5 social insurances and 1 housing fund, or it was difficult to meet performance standards. They all played word traps, and the actual salary was pitifully low. In this situation, I really don't know whether to continue job hunting. Additionally, some people are scammed while looking for a job. Some netizens also pointed out that even those with jobs are struggling, and even public institutions cannot escape the wave of salary cuts. In Beijing, I dare say the most uncomfortable group of people are those working in good units. Many units can no longer pay salaries, and those that can have significantly reduced them. Plus, they face liquidation within the system after many years of service. Isn't that cruel? To be honest, if it weren't so difficult to find jobs elsewhere, many people might have resigned already. Not only is the work pressure high, but there are also many rules. Colleagues are cautious in their words and deeds, fearing trouble. The work is boring and lacks technical content. There are meetings every day, frequent problems, and constant shirking of responsibility. It is reported that many large companies and institutions have closed their stores, and employees are facing layoffs, job transfers, and even being forced to bear additional commuting costs. Similar situations have become very common, reflecting the current harsh reality. Company business has declined sharply or even stagnated completely. If you want to resign, you worry about not being able to find a new job. If you don't resign, the shrinking business leads to meager wages and a sharp increase in life pressure. This dilemma is a true portrayal of many people in the workplace at present. Some netizens even pointed out that Beijing has seen many strange phenomena this year. For example, Beijing's office market vacancy rate has risen to 20.6%. The highest level in at least 15 years. What's more exaggerated is that the vacancy rate of office buildings in Beijing's Tongzhou district has reached 65%. The vacancy rate of office buildings is too high. Half of a building has no tenants. No one is willing to rent it, fully showing that money is not easy to make. There are obviously fewer people in shopping malls, restaurants, and supermarkets than before. Even the nightclubs that were particularly lively and prosperous are now much less crowded. The takeaway stalls are empty, and a large number of restaurants have closed down. There are also fewer people ordering takeaways, which is very different from before. It is reported that the catering industry in Beijing can be said to have collapsed. According to Beijing's statistics, in the first half of 2024, the total profit of Beijing's catering companies was only 180 million yuan, a year-on-year decrease of 88.8%, and the profit margin was as low as 0.37%, which is not as high as the interest rate of banks. The profit of fast food restaurants fell by 49.9%, while the profit of cold drink services fell by 86.1%. This row of small restaurants is all gone. These two are also closed. This grilled fish restaurant is shut, and this beef noodle shop has also closed down. Do you know how cruel the catering industry is this year? I will take you to see this food street, which was very glorious in the past. You can see how miserable these restaurants are in this food city. This food street was once very glorious, and it was hard to find a shop. Sometimes you had to spend hundreds of thousands more to secure a shop. Now you can see that many big brands can no longer hold on, and there are only 1 or 2 stores left, barely struggling to survive. Nowadays, many shops of well-known brands in China are gradually withering. Walking into these once bustling commercial districts, you will find that there are almost no shops with lights on. Occasionally, you may see a noodle restaurant barely open, but many other shops have long been closed, and most of the surrounding shops are idle. Only a few shops are still operating, while other places have long been deserted. A few years ago, this was a popular check-in spot for internet celebrities, bustling with people, but now it is pitch black, like a ghost city. The prosperity of the past has long disappeared, which makes people sigh. Many people worked hard all their lives to save money, dreaming of opening a restaurant in such a golden area and expecting to make a fortune. However, reality is ruthless. Now these shops are almost all closed, and the empty streets make people feel extremely desolate. Even the once very prosperous Xi'an shopping mall can't hold on. Everyone, Xi'an shopping mall has closed down. Did you know about Xi'an shopping mall in Beijing? In the 1990s, many people bought silver and gold jewelry there, or followed the Korean wave. Many people had to visit Xi'an shopping mall, but it has now closed down. I tell you, a large number of shopping malls will close down in the future. Do you believe it? People often say that newly opened stores are prone to instability. But who would have thought that even such an old shopping mall with a history of nearly 100 years could hardly sustain itself? With the rapid rise of e-commerce, the survival space of physical stores has been greatly compressed. Behind the closure of many stores, countless families have lost their jobs, and countless factories have shut down. The once bustling commercial streets have now become deserted. The prosperous areas that were once crowded with people are now sparsely populated. The closure of Xi'an shopping mall is not only the end of a shopping mall, but also the end of an era. Empty buildings. Beijing and Shanghai are becoming ghost towns of the economy. The 3-year zero-out policy, along with the economic recession, has dealt a heavy blow to China's economy. Today, even major cities like Beijing and Shanghai are experiencing a severe recession, with few people in shopping malls and deserted streets. The state of China's economy is clear at a glance. Beijing resident Wang Li. The overall economy is not doing well. You don't have a job, you don't make money, and people like us basically avoid spending money if we can. We are all being frugal. It's no longer the case that people spend money on festivals like they used to. The Mid-Autumn Festival and National Day holiday are approaching, but the market in Beijing remains very deserted. An anonymous Beijing resident said, "No one understands the state of China's economy better than the Chinese people living in it." Beijing resident Wang Li. Everything has gone up in price. For example, a bottle of vinegar. It used to cost 9 yuan, but recently it has gone up to 14 yuan. Jobs are being lost on a large scale. Prices are rising sharply. Wages are shrinking. And the decline in consumer purchasing power has made life more difficult for businesses. Beijing's Zhongguancun, once one of the city's most prosperous areas, now has deserted streets, sparsely populated malls, and only a few businesses and retail investors remaining in the Science and Trade Mall. Lihua, take Wukesong, which is near West Chang'an Avenue, and the organization department of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of China. Every time I return, since July of this year, I find the number of stores there has sharply declined. There are streets where, in just 10 days, 7 adjacent stores closed down. Li Hua, who frequently travels between Beijing, Hebei, and other places, has noticed that foreign-funded supermarkets in Beijing have mostly closed. Li Hua, they've basically all closed down. Carrefour's last store in Beijing was acquired. Without Carrefour, Walmart is barely holding on in Beijing. However, this phenomenon is not unique to Beijing. Shanghai, China's economic center, is facing the same challenges. Video shooter. There are a lot of empty shops everywhere. And this location is pretty good, right next to Yu Garden, but now it's like this. Shanghai resident. Shanghai used to be very lively at night, especially with shops along the street, some for eating, some for drinking, some for shopping. Now, often after 8:30 p.m., malls are already closing, and it has become very quiet. Due to the weak economy and slowing business activity, many companies and workers have begun to move out of Shanghai, and even out of China. Shanghai resident. I went to buy duck heads today. I know the boss well, so I chatted with him. He told me that many people who left Shanghai have never returned. This was rare over the past 10 years. Not only are a large number of shops closing, but office buildings where white-collar workers used to gather are also becoming empty. According to data from international real estate service provider Savills, in the second quarter of this year, the office building vacancy rate in Beijing was as high as 18.3%, a 13-year record. According to data from CBRE, in the second quarter of this year, the office building vacancy rate in Shanghai reached 18.7%, Shenzhen 20.3%, and Guangzhou 17.5%. Commercial activity in China's 4 first-tier cities has shrunk almost simultaneously. While some may avoid criticizing the Chinese economy openly, it is, in fact, the economy is in serious decline. Difficult to find a job. Young people in Beijing's labor market are scrambling for temporary work. After college graduates face unemployment and encounter setbacks in their job search, some rely on their parents' support and lie flat completely. However, young people who cannot depend on their elders are forced into the daily wage industry. To make a living, they gather in labor markets before dawn, competing for temporary jobs that pay daily wages. An investigative report published by Korean media outlet Chosun Ilbo on September 4th revealed the current situation at the Majuqiao labor market on the outskirts of Beijing. Majuqiao is the largest labor market in North China, where thousands of people eager to find job opportunities gather daily. Due to the difficulty of finding stable employment, more and more young people with higher education have recently flocked here, competing with other migrant workers for jobs such as kitchen assistants, cleaners, security guards, and other temporary positions that offer daily wages. On September 3rd, the investigative reporter observed that by 4 a.m. at the Majuqiao labor market in Beijing, many young people had already arrived. Mr. Zheng, a 29-year-old interviewed at the scene, said he has recently noticed many people younger than himself here. Most of these young people are new, and when they first come, they are glued to their smartphones. After failing a few times in this first-come, first-served environment, they eventually lower their phones. Mr. Zheng, who is from Baoding, Hebei Province, worked at a semiconductor equipment factory in Beijing 2 years ago, earning a monthly salary of 6,500 yuan. After losing his job, he now lives in a dormitory costing 20 yuan per day and rushes to the labor market each morning to look for job opportunities. Reports describe elderly vendors near the Majuqiao labor market selling thread gloves for 2 yuan a pair and work shoes for 10 yuan a pair. The main buyers are new young workers. Every morning from 4 to 6 a.m., vans and buses pick up construction workers, kitchen assistants, logistics center sorters, cleaners, and security guards. The daily wages for these part-time workers generally range from 160 yuan, with more physically demanding jobs like express delivery loaders paying over 200 yuan. The report also revealed that, starting from the second half of this year, wages for daily jobs in the Majuqiao labor market have mostly fallen to below 200 yuan. However, the cost of accommodation in 4-person rooms in the nearby daily rental village has risen to about 20 yuan per day. Near the labor market, some people can be seen sleeping on the streets to save on accommodation costs. The report noted that statistics released by the Chinese job search website Xi'an in November last year showed that 50% of temporary workers in China are under 25 years old. Given the dramatic increase in the number of graduate students unable to find jobs, the actual youth unemployment situation in China is likely much more severe than official statistics indicate.